to get some help to him. So welcome everyone on behalf of the Future Skills organisation. My name is Jo Fuller and I'm a project lead with the VET and Innovation team here at FSO. Thank you everyone for attending today's workshop, and certainly appreciate that for some of you this may be quite early in the morning, so appreciate your attendance as we go across Australia here. Today's workshop is focused on the update of the Certificate 30524 Telecommunications Technology. This session is being recorded, and together with this slide deck we will make this available to you at the end of the session via the FSO website. We'll be sending a follow-up email. I'd like to welcome our speakers for today. We have Lisa Bale, who is our Director for the VET and Innovation team from FSO. And then we have Dominic Schipano, who's the NEO from the Communications and Information Technology Training Limited. I should have just said CITT, shouldn't I? Yep, everyone knows CITT. I would just like to commence, if we can move to the next slide, if I can commence with acknowledging the traditional owners of the many lands on which we are on today. I am currently on the lands of the Tharawal and Darug Nation. I'd like to pay my respect to elders both past and present, and acknowledge and pay my respect to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander person in attendance today. So without further ado, I would just like to hand over to Lisa to commence the session. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you also for taking time out of your day to attend this workshop. So what we're going to do is we have a welcome, and we're going to have an overview from Dominic around the industry view. Then we're going to look at the updates that we made to the Certificate 3 in Telecommunications Technology. Then we'll look at the new project that we have ready to begin this year, which will look at telecommunications technology qualifications. We'll have time for questions about each of those projects, and then we'll have the meeting close. So over to you, Dominic.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome. This for one of hopefully a few sessions around the training packages in the ICT space. This is about the telecommunications side of things. Historically, what's happened is that we've been approached by quite a few RTOs around improving and updating the qualification. In this case, what's happened is we identified that the Group J rigging stream in the Cert 3 needed urgent attention, and we, as an industry, approached the FSO, who had been kind enough to put a project together and a team together to actually get this telecommunications stream looked at. We looked at the stream and identified that, unfortunately, when the previous SSO did the updates, they actually left off some of the rigging licensing arrangements. And so the FSO, through its technical committee, actually went out and consulted with industry, and we came up with obviously a solution of one, reintroducing some of the competencies that were missing, and two, just to do some minor updates as well while we were there with the program. So from an industry point of view, it was one of those situations that we needed to do urgently, but more importantly, it gave the FSO a bit of a template, if you like, on how we go forward with any updates in the telecommunication training package. So on that note, Lisa, I'll hand back to you to say well done.
Thanks very much. It was really, this was the first training package organising framework that we went through. So it was a great one to do, particularly because of the help and the cooperation and the assistance of the technical committee. So the technical committee's been outstanding in this project. Okay, next slide, please. So the purpose of this workshop is so that we can bring people together to support the implementation of the recently developed training products. to provide clarity on the updates and to assist with understanding the key changes and how that impacts you, and then to look at the future planning opportunities that we have. So to take people back to the beginning is when we go through and make any training product changes, we follow these 7 steps. So essentially we have a workforce need that's identified, and then that will be documented through our workforce plan, and industry contribute to that to say this is the actual need that we have. We go through an initial development stage. This is where we form the technical committee. The technical committee provide the direction around what we actually need to do with the training products. And then once we have the training products finalised, and I'm going to say that initial development period, can take a long time, because if we're writing new units of competency, then that happens in that period. Once the final training products are actually developed, and that all happens in the initial development, and the technical committee are happy with those, we go into public and government consultation. And this is where we put the final products on the website, and the public are able to comment, the governments and state and territory governments are able to comment, and then all of the comments we collect and we table and we present back to the technical committee. And in some cases we may need to make a decision because there may be comments that are contrary to each other. And so that comes back to the technical committee in making those decisions. We then incorporate the feedback into the final products, and then we go through what's called a senior officials check. So this is where it's actually put out to the states and territories again, and the states and territories have the opportunity to provide additional comments from the final document. It's then submitted to the due assurance body, who essentially it's for compliance. They go through and make sure that all the rules have been followed and that everything's been done correctly. And as part of that, we submit the minutes of the meetings of the technical committee, the information on who was part of the technical committee. So that all gets submitted. And then the assurance body consider it and make a recommendation. And the recommendation is normally that it's compliant or non-compliant. And if it's non-compliant, they may come back to us and say we need to make changes. If that's the case, we go back again to the technical committee. All being well at that stage, we go forward to the skills minister nationally signs it off, and then it goes out to all of the state and territory skills ministers for their sign off. And once that stage has occurred, it is then loaded onto the National Training Register or training.gov. So that's the process that we go through to make a change. So the changes in the training products are not made lightly, and they're not made by a JSC. The technical committees are the key to being able to do this. I'll just move on to the next slide. So saying that these are the names of our wonderful technical committee that we had for telecommunications, and many of you are here on this call. So once again, we can't really thank you enough for your engagement and your involvement, and essentially your care about the industry and the training package in making sure that we actually get it right, and so that it benefits the learners and the industry. Okay, so what did we actually do? As Dominic said, we had it identified that in the group J, in the elective stream group J, that the telecommunications rigging had only one unit of competency, which is the bottom unit of competency. So we needed to add 2 more additional electives, and the ones that were added are the license to perform dogging and the license to perform rigging basic level. The second change that was made was in the knowledge evidence list for the unit of competency, install, maintain and modify customer premises communications cabling. It had a reference to a previous version of the Communication Alliance standards. So that now includes the current legislative reference to the standards. And on the next slide, the final training products produced is the Certificate 3 in Telecommunications Technology. You'll note there that it's a 24 version. So the qualification was updated, and that was because we added prerequisite units. So according to the training package rules, that constitutes a major change, and a major change is a change in the coding and the release of the qualification. We also had the knowledge release added, and then whenever we add anything to any training packages or make any changes, we need to update the companion volume implementation guide. So the ICT Information Communications Technology training package companion volume implementation guide was also updated. So a note about the companion volume implementation guide is that there is one guide per training package, and there are links on every, so in ICT, there are links on all the ICT training products to that companion volume guide. And the link always stays the same regardless of where we make the changes or the updates. But there is indication there that that's where we've made the changes. So I'm going to stop on that part and ask, are there any questions or comments that people would like to ask or make?
Lisa, it's Dominic here. One of the things that I want to reinforce for people who may not be aware, that a training package companion volume is very, very important for RTOs and industry to understand around the actual competencies themselves, but how that can be delivered, what needs to be looked at, because again, the competency is just a framework, it's not the detail. So I just want to emphasize that if people aren't aware, which I assume people are, that companion volume is what I call the Bible to the whole training package.
Yeah, thank you, Dom. And it is quite essential. And for, like we said, all changes, we need to update that. We call it CVIG for short. But we need to update the companion volume implementation guide, and that is so that essentially teachers and users of the training package can look at it and say what exactly was changed and what happened in this new version. And so also, Pete, just to sort of add on to that, in TGA, when you have a look at TGA and look up the new ICT 30524 release, it has the modification history that says this was the change that actually happened. So that makes it easier for RTOs to implement, because it's identified this is exactly what we changed, and that people aren't searching for did they change something else different.
Lisa, I might just explain TGA for those people who may not be aware from industry is the training.gov website. So
yep.
you need to have a look at that, because it actually gives you what the government has approved, if you like, through the training packages and the qualifications.
Yes, and I'll just I'll add the link in the chat now to that qualification. So if you click on that link, you'll be able to go in and see the qualification change that I've just been talking about. Okay, probably my only other comment to make about this particular training package was the release date was the 16th of December, which we acknowledge is a terrible release date to release anything in December. But it was, and the reason for that date was the way that it was planned and where we started it in the year. And so so that was just unfortunate that it was in December, but we have really taken into, for the next project, into mind that when we do a release, that we're avoiding the December-January period. Okay, so over to you, Dom, to take us through the background for the second project.
Thank you, Lisa. As an industry, we always look back at telecommunication as being the backbone of what's going to happen in convergence, in digital environment, digital economy, etc. And it's important that we keep abreast of what we need to do with the changes that are happening. I see this as three areas, if you like, of the industry. There is what we call the telecommunication infrastructure, if you like, and that's very important. That takes in the satellites, the Wi-Fi, the poles and wires, etc. But it also means that we have to look at how people are going to be skilled to make sure that that infrastructure is actually meeting whatever the requirements are. There are regulators involved in that, and one of them is the ACMA, the Australian Communication Media Authority, and because of that, we actually have to engage with them because there is what we call the cable registration system in place, that any cabler who goes into the network has to ensure that they are, one, safe, and there's occupational health and safety issue, but two, that they have maintained the integrity of that network. Now, those cablers tend to work inside what we call the premises, but there's also the outside or the other side of what we call the network boundary, which is the infrastructure side, which NBN Co, for example, is one of the major players, as well as some private people involved. So as a result of that, without telecommunication, you do not have convergence. You do not have AI or integrated technology. So it is a very, very important function in terms of making sure that that telecommunication network is maintained, but also to make sure that the quality of that network is fairly high. So as an industry, we've approached the FSO to review the current ICT training packages, and in particular, the telecommunications side of that ICT training package. And we believe that there are some underpinning skills and knowledges that you need to keep. Some of the principles are there, but there's also some of the elements and the performance criteria within that package that need to be updated and need to be reworked because things have changed dramatically over the last 10 years in the network infrastructure. But it also goes beyond just the network. It goes inside the premises. It goes into areas such as medical, into cyber, into a whole heap of other areas that actually impacts the network. And that's an important element of why we've approached the FSO to look at that stream. And they understand that this is important because, as I mentioned, without that backbone, you don't have any digitization or connectivity. Without connectivity, you don't have anything. And the best example I can give you is have a look at the disasters, whether it's floods or fires, and have a look at all the businesses that can't access their FPOS machines or can't access their mobile phones, etc. So very important part, very small part of the industry, but very, very, very important to be able to get the skills and the competencies right. So on that note, Lisa has been kind enough, and FSO have been kind enough to put a program together and a project together that we will go into the next phase of the telco industry. Thanks,
Thank
Lisa.
you. Thank you, Dom. And that was a really good description of what's happened. So, and this is a great example to show where, in response to industry, what we are actually able to do and then action. So, so both the industry and the technical committee throughout our project were very keen to keep reminding us that there were changes that needed to be made where there's outdated units of competency and skill sets and qualifications and where things need to be updated. So with the support of the industry and the technical committee, we were successful in getting our second telecommunications project funded, and this one is a lot more comprehensive. So I'll move to the next slide just to show you what we'll be doing. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to do a full review of all telecommunications technology qualifications. There are 6 qualifications and we've listed those there. You'll note one of those is the new 24 version of Telecommunications Technology Certificate 3. There are also 32 telecommunications skill sets, and there are, and I'm saying approximately, but there are approximately 130 units of competency that are telecommunications specific. So this project will look at all of those qualifications, skill sets, and units of competency. So we'll be doing that via 2 projects. So the first project will be the scoping, and the scoping will look at all of these existing units of competency, determine essentially their fit for purpose, and will then provide recommendations that we can then take to the technical committee on essentially, what we need to keep, what we need to rewrite, what we need to remove from these qualifications. Greg, I can see you've put your hand up. Do you have a question?
Just on mute, Greg, if you want to unmute there.
Okay,
Sorry, Lisa, while we're waiting for Greg to unmute himself, can I highlight a couple of things while we've got the slide up?
Yeah, sure.
A couple of things that I think are important here. One is in terms of that Certificate 2 and Certificate 3 in Telecommunication Network Build and Operation. That was built, we actually got that up and running, I think it was about 8 years ago. It was definitely before COVID. And it was developed around that existing infrastructure at that time. And things have moved greatly. And I know Chris Milligan's on the screen there from NBN-Co, and it's important that we need to start to engage with the NBN-Cos as well as the other organisations, Vocus, Telstra, etc., because a lot of the things have changed in that network build and operation, and a lot has actually sort of culminated in some of the competencies still exist, are still required, but some need to be reviewed, and this is the important part of that particular one. In terms of the Certificate 2 in Telecommunication Technology and 3 Telecommunication Technology, they were specifically written for a period at that time. Things again have moved forward, and they're the ones, for example, that we need to look at from what we call a smart technology, smart homes, integrated technology, the ACMA registrations, etc. So you can see how important these 6 qualifications are in terms of us reviewing them. That's not to say we have to change everything, but it does say we have to update those. And the last thing I want to say is around the skill sets. Again, those skill sets were written up at a time when skill sets weren't being considered, and so we felt that we needed to have 32 skill sets. Looking at those skill sets, I can tell you we don't need 32. We may be able to reduce some of those, and we may be able to organise skill sets in such a way that they can be actually valuable rather than just having them there for the sake of having them there. And I don't mean they're not useless at the moment in the package, but they may not be relevant to today's world. So I just wanted to give a broad context, Lisa, around why
thank you.
We support that.
Yeah, and that's fantastic, because that's all in the scoping piece to make sure that what we actually have available are reflective of what's happening in industry now, and that meets the needs for now, but also into the future. And so we've got that. Then the second piece of work that will be done is the actual writing of the qualifications, the skill sets, and the units of competency where they need editing or new units written. And when we write those units of competency, just so that people are aware that we will be using, as part of the qualifications reform work that was done last year by DUA, they have released a new training package organising framework process. And with that, there are new qualification templates and new units of competency templates. So everything that we do now will go into those new qualification templates, and then there's a choice of unit of competency templates. So that's the work that we'll undertake, but it's the full review. I think there's a couple of questions in the chat, Joe, is that right?
That's right. So Leon's just asked about what would be the timeline for this update to go
Yep,
through the
so
6 clause.
I'll cover that next, Leon.
Okay, and then Chris is going to talk to Dominic, which is about this very exciting project, which is fantastic. And Greg, unfortunately, hasn't been able to unmute himself, but it's the question, does the FSO tag expert to use the revised TP templates or stick with the current templates?
Yep. Okay. So I think I just answered that question. So we will use the revised templates. But in the scoping piece of work, for instance, there's now a choice of unit of competency templates. So the unit, there's not just one. And so the work of the scoping that we start with, the first piece of work, that will actually make recommendations on which template to use. And that will be done by the industry experts who are providing all of the advice to give us a complete scope of what work needs to be done. So that will include those templates. So hopefully that answers the question there. Okay, so the next question around timeframes. We have on our website an anticipated start date of May. However, we are working on that to see if we can bring it forward. So if we can bring it forward even by a month to April, then we will do that, but we will keep you informed, but it will definitely start by May, perhaps earlier. So to complete the work, we will be going out for contracts to do the scoping piece of work and the writing the units of competency. So depending on how long that piece of work takes, we hope to be able to get the work done within a 12 to 18 month period. So we will know closer to when we actually form the committees and we let the RFPs go, how long that period will go for. Are there any other questions? So how can you be involved? We've got a couple of ways here. We will be forming a new technical committee that inform the process throughout. So we will be putting out expressions of interest for people to nominate to be a part of the technical committee. The other way that you can contribute is you can contribute to the public consultation. And if you're from a Commonwealth, state or territory government, then you can contribute to the government's consultation. You can also subscribe as a collaborator or follow the project through LinkedIn. So once again, yep.
Lisa, sorry, can I get some clarification? Because a few people have asked me about that first point, about how do they nominate for the technical committee, or which is the expression of interest, but who can join the technical committee? You know, is it just industry? Is it RTO? Is it a mixture? You know, what are you looking for in terms of the criteria of that technical committee, if you wouldn't mind?
Okay. Yep. So there's a criteria, and the criteria will be on the expression of interest. And so when you fill that out, you tick what area that you are in. So we are required to have somebody from industry. We're required to have somebody from state and territory governments. We're required, or ITABs. We are also required to have a union representative, and we're required to have a teacher representative. And so some people in the technical committee may meet more than one criteria. And if you do, you'll be able to tick the multiple criterias. But we have to have a representation from those areas.
So if I may, sorry, Lisa, because a couple of people have asked me questions around this. Firstly, can we get the regulators involved at the technical committee, or are they a separate, for example, the ACMA, which is a major player in this case because of the regulations? Do they come in as a part of the technical committee, or do we consult to them later? And secondly, there are two other jobs and skills councils who are impacted by this particular review.
Yep.
Powering Schools, obviously, through the UEE because of the cable registration, and SACSA because a lot of their arts and entertainment people actually need a cabling license to work in the technical area of their industry. So do we engage with them as part of technical committee or separately?
It's an either or, depends on how the rest of the makeup is with the other expressions of interest. So it depends what we'll do there. We have already been speaking with Powering Skills about the activity, so they are quite keen to be involved where they can be. So whether that's direct involvement or consultation will be determined once we have the expressions of interest out. So I'll let you know about the ACMA as well further.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments people would like to make? All right, well, thank you once again. Thank you to our previous technical committee who served very well and represented well. Thank you, Dominic, for coming along and providing our industry input, and thank you for the organisation. We just have an evaluation form, so we have a link in the chat or we have a QR code. If you would like to fill that out, that would help us in just gaining some feedback about what we can do to improve. So that would be great. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Lisa, can I just say one thing before everybody leaves? Can I encourage you people to be involved either as a collaborator or part of the technical committee? There's 3 areas in particular that we, apart from the whole review, that I would like to focus on. One is OH&S, and Mel Grinnell, you're on the committee. Hopefully you will volunteer, because there's a lot of things that we need to look at in terms of what is actually happening out there in industry. There's a lot of accidents that are happening and a lot of damage being done to infrastructure. And Chris, I know you're very familiar with this at NBNCO, and I need you people in NBNCO to be involved. One of the things that keeps cropping up through some of the discussions is we don't have what's called a Telecommunication Foundation or an introduction to the network, which is one of the things that I think we need to have a look at. And that is, how do we actually encourage people to understand what the total network looks like and what's the impact if you do damage to that network. So these are just sort of some minor things. OH&S is huge. I just want to encourage people to make sure that they do consider either being on the technical committee or as part of the collaboration through this process. So thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thanks, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.
We've just got one question from Leon just before we go.
Okay. Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah, just a quick one. I just want to know on the other ICT packages, Diploma of Information Technology and so on and so forth. Are there going to be also amendments to those packages?
So they
or
are
updates to those packages?
not within this particular project. This is purely on telecommunications.
Okay.
But there has been we have been doing a needs and gaps analysis on ICT, the remainder minus telco. And so that report is due to be finished early next month. Yep. And once that report's finished, we will then look at what we need to do to change as a result of what we found out in the report. So we will be making changes, just they may not all be defined yet.
Yeah, because I'm just trying to put something on scope and probably, have resources, and should I hold on to it till this goes through, because otherwise there'll be unnecessary cost and of the changes that involved. You know what I mean?
Yes. And just a couple of other projects. So for people's awareness is we are doing a project for digital capability and developing a suite of units for digital capability. We are also doing qualifications in generative AI and in cybersecurity. So they'll be national qualifications, and we have already approved projects in those areas. So, and I think Dominic alluded to it in his earlier comments, we have had a focus on ICT. And so this is the segment that is the telecommunications part, but certainly digital capability, generative AI and cyber are approved activities that we will be beginning shortly. And then we will do activities as a result of the needs and gaps analysis.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa.
My pleasure. Last call for questions. Okay, with that, we'll close the meeting. Thanks everyone for attending.
Thanks all.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.